Hello. Well, hopefully you've paid for this and
Sorry.
you're not watching it because, someone like Nick has given you access or something like that. But before I start, I just want to thank everyone who's kind of helped me in Jiu-Jitsu, all my coaches and teammates, everyone who's helped me, especially with leg locks. I attended a lot of great seminars with John Will, this particular German fella who was a bit of a wizard. I can't remember his name right now. And then of course, Lachlan Giles, Luke Martin, all the guys over in the US, B team, all the coaches and guys over there. So really grateful for them to, show me this stuff so that I can now show you guys. The first thing I want to kind of get into here, I was kind of shown leg locks in almost the opposite way that I would now teach leg locks. I was shown a lot of really fancy entries of how to get into these leg locking positions without a good understanding of how to really finish these attacks, and also it wasn't a very systematic kind of organized way to control and break people's legs. It was like a bunch of random cool fancy techniques, and then over time, as I did John Will seminars and then was a student of Lachlan Giles and the guys in Texas, I've now got a more organized approach where I'm also more aware and I have a better idea of, I think, also the order in which you should develop your knowledge and skill of how to control and break people's legs. So I think the first thing you want to really focus on, and the main area this instructional is made to sort of develop you in, is having really good breaking mechanics. Now I think most people in Jiu-Jitsu understand why we need to have good breaking mechanics. The submission is really the soul of Jiu-Jitsu. We need to be confident in our ability to finish, to end the fight or the match. And if you don't have that ability, well, it's not really much of a martial art or a combat sport. If you have if you're really good at getting to these positions, but you're not able to finish. I've had this happen in matches before. I've gotten to really dominant positions, maybe on the back, get a choke on someone, and then they get out. It can really demoralize you. I've had tournaments where I won that particular match because I scored points or whatever, but the person getting out, it really shook my confidence to finish the guy, so that in the next match I'm like, man, do I really want to exert all this energy and effort to get back to a really dominant position when I know I'm not able to finish the match, and now I'm really tired and fatigued, and this guy can come back and potentially take me out. Also, the thing with having good breaking mechanics is it really makes you a far more fearsome grappler. When the other guy feels that there's very strong submission threat, there's really strong threat of injury, it really changes the way he's going to grapple. He's going to have to be very cognizant of it and try to avoid. It's going to alter his behavior in ways which are beneficial to me. So that's a bit of the theory behind this. Now we're going to get into what I call the core four. So the core four is basically what any heel hook really needs to get a catastrophic break. There's different techniques for accomplishing the core four, but we really need to meet these four to have the most possible damage to the leg of our opponent. So the first two of the core four is rotation at the lower and upper leg of my opponent. The way I would accomplish this is with my grips on his lower leg, I rotate one way, and then with my legs, I rotate in the opposing direction. Now, of course, with an outside heel hook, the directions at which I'm rotating with my legs and hands turns, but the fact that we're rotating in opposite directions does not change. A good way to explain, a good analogy to explain what we're doing here is basically we're trying to wring out a wet piece of fabric. So a tablecloth or a towel, to get the water out, we're going to grip it tightly and rotate it in opposing directions, and that generates a lot of force and forces the water out of the material. So that's what I'm looking to do here. Often people will forget about what they're doing with their legs and really focus on rotation at the lower leg. This can still work. You can still get a tap, but it's not as effective as when I have this counter rotation. The second two things I need is a bend in the leg and this dorsal flexion. I don't really even know what dorsal flexion means, but basically I need his toes.
Bring the toes to the shin.
Exactly, shin back towards him. This plantar flexion is what we're trying to avoid. When his toes face away from me, especially if he's quite flexible and has a lot of range of motion here, this is quite bad for me. Why? Well, you'll notice that when this happens, I don't have much aids. It's very hard for me to grip it. Even if I do grip his heel, I don't have much purchase on his heel itself. Whereas when I'm able to create this opposite movement, this dorsal flexion, I have a great purchase on his heel, which makes this rotation very simple and quite an easy thing for me to accomplish. So we've looked at the opposing counter rotation, we've looked at the fact that we need this dorsal flexion happening, and a bend in the leg. That is the core four. When I've done these four things correctly, I can expect to cause a really strong break in quite easily and in quite an efficient manner. How exactly I accomplish this is not so important, I can put a bend in his leg with something like an undercross. I can use a climber grip. Simply by even moving my elbow forward, I can put a bend in his leg. There's even methods where I use my hips, doing a lateral bridge with my hips, which put a bend in the leg. So you can be creative with how exactly you accomplish the core four, but it is important to have counter rotation at the upper and lower limb, to have that dorsal flexion, and to have a bend in the leg. Alright guys, so I'm going to talk a bit about John Will. His seminars were pretty organized. He called them Ashigurami 101, 102, 103. I don't know if I went to all three, but I went to a couple of them, read his books. He's a great coach and really a pioneer of Australian Jiu-Jitsu. And he talks about the seed for what we're kind of doing now in Jiu-Jitsu, because often we're looking at the current trends and trying to predict what's going to be successful in the future, but it's often useful to also look at what's been working in the past, why, and it's, if for nothing else, just for a bit of interest in kind of the history of how we started to do what we're doing. John's idea of where the genesis of leg attacks and leg entanglements came from is basically that there was a guy in a more combat situation, striking situation, standing over another guy, raining down blows, and obviously I'm in a terrible predicament here. What can I do other than cover up is maybe grab a hold of him. Now I have some control of his body, and once I bring my legs up in front, there's now somewhat of a barrier between him and myself. Now it's harder for him to hit me. You'll notice this also, like when let's say if I have his leg over here in 50-50, if I can bridge away, it's very difficult for him to strike me. So if he's trying to strike me here, it's difficult. And I can push and pull and cause, Kazushi off balancing to get him off his feet. So he's standing once more. Obviously when we're just grappling, we're not so worried about this, but if you're trying to use these techniques in a self-defense or an MMA situation, then you've also got to be aware of which positions you can kind of hang out in and which positions you can't. Obviously, if I'm like here, I'm committing myself to grips here and playing these other positions, this is great in a grappling context, but he can just strike me until I'm, you know, in a bad state. So being aware of that, you know, depending on what you're looking to do. So John's idea was once guys had that, once they were good at using their legs to sort of defend against strikes and do different things, guys came up with methods of sweeping using their legs. So there's many variations, you know, simple is to chop, taking him off balance, and now I can get away, or as John says, stab him with a knife. Stab, he's dead, you know. And then at some point, guys probably thought, you know what, I've already got a handle on the leg. Maybe I should, I don't know, break his leg. So this is a cool kind of, I don't know how you can like validate how correct this is, and this really was how leg locking came to be, but it's something that makes sense, and cool bit of information for me to throw in this for you. Okay, now we're gonna take a more in-depth look at the inside heel hook. So the inside heel hook, especially from saddle or cross ashi or 411 or honey hole or inside ashi, whatever you want to call it. You use lots of different names. It's a good way to confuse people and make them think you're a lot smarter than you are. Sell seminars. Today you're learning the honey hole. Looks a lot like what we were learning the other day. We need to be aware of what his objectives are defensively, because it really affects what I want to do and my ability to, because obviously he wants the exact opposite of what I want. It's advantageous for me to have his knee line controlled and have a lot of my leg quite high on his femur, whereas for him, the more he can slip the knee line, it's better for him, you know. I want to bend his leg, he wants to extend his leg. Basically all the things I want, he wants the opposite. That's why by learning a lot of offense or defense, you kind of learn one or the other. I'm going to use this undercross to bend the leg, like so, and place my other arm in what I call like a shotgun grip. Now, it's quite useful for us to take a scoop or an undercross with this left arm, because A, it helps us bend the leg, and there's no better use I have for this left arm. If I begin to take scoops with the other arm, A, there's obviously this space up top for him to free his leg. He can just pull his leg out, you know. And it's now much harder for me to then, I've got to come over the top and then catch the heel. So sometimes, as I see guys mucking around with leg entanglements, they'll take scoops. There's not much utility in doing this. It's far better to either have a deeper overhook or set some variation where it's like what we call a shotgun grip here. Now, with my inside leg, I want to be continually back heeling like so. My toes are kind of pointed towards him, foot is stomping on the mat, and I'm crunching in here. These two, the undercross and the back heeling motion that I'm doing, makes it a lot more difficult for him to slip his knee line here. So if Nick tries to withdraw his leg, I'm connected to him. Even if he tries to roll, I'm connected to him. If you just reset. Next, I want to expose his heel. Of course, when we're just teaching breaking mechanics, often I'm just lifting with the undercross and catching. It becomes harder to do this once he knows what I want. So he might point his toes, maybe try to rotate the foot outwards. Again, I'm going to try to, I definitely don't want his knee turning out like this, so I'm going to stay tight here, snug, and just have my chest and body weight over the top as I look to use my torso to kind of pop through here and catch. This second leg is going to be coming on top, foot over foot, like so. And one thing with the grip, the more my elbow starts to chicken wing and flare out, the easier it is for him to slip his heel. Again, we want to prematurely prevent a lot of his, I don't know if that's a correct word, but I want to prevent a lot of his escapes and defensive options before he even has a chance to do them. So by keeping this elbow back and tight to my ribs, he doesn't have much opportunity now to heel slip. Whereas when there's separation from my ribs, exactly, he's able to very easily do, same as when, let's say if I come up on my shoulder, this can be okay for certain situations, but again, it's much easier for him to slip the heel like so. So what I want to focus on is putting the heel quite high where my wristwatch would ordinarily sit, staying up on my elbow, reducing the space between my elbow and ribs as much as possible, and also moving my elbow as far forward as possible. That also puts, again, more of a bend in the leg, which is like number 3 or 4 of the core 4. Next, I'm going to connect my hands. I've got quite long forearms, so I almost always will look for a butterfly, a reverse grip, some variation. You can just do a palm to palm. This isn't incorrect. I can still get a break here. A good way to practice getting the butterfly grip, of course I can just upgrade from here, but you want to grab the wrist and then ratchet this up, making this very tight. So here I grab the wrist, ratchet this up here, and I don't want to separate like so. Move my head away from my torso, have all this disconnect, do this large obtuse movement. I'd much rather keep my chin to his heel, bring up his heel to my chin, and be quite compact, almost like a ball. And then I'm going to do this counter rotation where I clamp, turn the knees away, and then also pull. So it's a very minor movement here. Now's a good time to also talk about what I call the 10 and 2 principle. And this is just a name I've come up for this concept, but basically it's like, with my range of motion, I want to be able to finish my opponent at 2, but be able to go till 10. If I've got a bad heel hook, let's say, and I'm like at 10, and he's like only just tapping, well, a more flexible person, a more stronger person might be able to eat that. Whereas if I'm at here, getting a tap at 2, but I can go, much further, well, now I know if I come up against a stronger, more flexible opponent that I've got a significant amount of range of motion left to be able to complete the submission. So once more, using this undercross, strong back heel, reinforcing the back heel, exposing the heel, staying up on my elbow, grabbing the wrist, rolling it forward. There's no space, there's very little space between my elbow and rib cage. My elbow is as far forward as possible, otherwise his leg will begin to straighten. I'm compact, head down, not extending away, head down, chin down, lifting the heel to my chin, bringing my chin to his heel, clamping, turning my knees away, and I'm getting a very strong finish at 2. And of course I can, continue to go till much further, get a much stronger break. We're going to show you a drill. When I was looking at material to steal to put into my instructional, I came across this in one of Craig's DVDs. This is a really good drill. One way to know if I'm doing this stuff well, if I've got the core 4 in place and all that, is to be able to finish with one limb, one leg, one arm. If I can finish with just one leg and one arm, it means that I have good breaking mechanics. So I'm gonna catch the heel like so, get this back heel happening, and just look to, again, practice all those same concepts. Staying up on the, it can be difficult at first, stay up on the elbow. There's like this just feels easier and whatnot, because you're doing these weird body movements, you know. We're not usually keeping tension and bringing our elbows close. It feels more comfortable. If I was just sitting, it'll feel more comfortable to keep my elbow away, but I want to make sure that I'm not being lazy. Bringing my elbow in far forward, not having separation between my elbow and my ribs. Strong back heel down, and then get good at doing this. Maybe you practice it on each side, but you guys have the basic understanding of what we're trying to do here. Keep the core 4 in your mind as you're doing this drill. Talk to your partner, get feedback, you know, where are they feeling. It doesn't really matter too much. Of course, you want the heel hook to be a bit more, you know, knee-centric. That's likely to do more damage than just attacking the ankle. Often, I notice that if people are reporting back to me, hey Bobby, I'm not getting any pressure in the knee, it's either the legs become extended and they're just doing lower leg rotation, or they're not at all using their legs. Because we have this tendency to be very upper body focused and forget about the bridging and rotating with the lower body. There's basically two things we do with our lower body. We either do what I call the clamp and turn method, which again, I'm back heeling and, you know, turning this knee that way, or I'm kind of lifting and bridging through. You can do one or the other, or even you can kind of look at, Craig will almost do a hybrid of both these methods, where he's again, all we're looking to do, guys, is cause rotation, this kind of internal rotation. How I accomplish it, again, doesn't matter as much, but this clamping and turning and bridging, that's how we're accomplishing that. And we'll look into that in further detail next when we look at the correct braking mechanics for the outside heel hook. Alright guys, next we're going to look at the outside heel hook. The inside heel hook is a stronger finish, but it's harder to get to, and there's definitely certain situations, depending on my opponent and his strengths and skills, where I'll elect to go for this outside heel hook. So the inside heel hook, we're going for it more so from 50-50 and the saddle, whereas the outside heel hook, there's outside Ashi, there's diagonal Ashi. They're the positions where I'm more likely to go for, maybe even from like single leg X or a Rimi Ashi. So when I'm here, you know, in outside Ashi, there's different configurations. I can put my leg here, I've got a foot stomp, and over the top I can again have the double back heel, or even some 10th planet guys do different weird things, as 10th planet guys like to do. Again, I can use my undercross, put a bend in the leg, and also it puts his heel in a good spot for me to catch a bite. For the purposes of me just showing you braking mechanics, I'll be digging this heel. Digging for someone's heel from outside Ashi can be a very dangerous thing to do. If I turn away from Nick, create this back exposure, it's very easy for him to come up and start to look, taking my back, flatten me out. It's not a party if he does that, you know. There are certain situations where you might want to be face down on your back. A lot of strong pressure from behind, that's not one of them. Anyway, so just something to keep in mind. So once again, I've got a dig on the heel. Here it's even more important to stay up on my elbow. Sometimes you see guys, Lachlan for example, who's been quite successful at being more down towards his shoulder and finishing. Here again, when I do that, there's this back exposure. So trying to stay up on this elbow like so. Again, I can look to finish with a standard gable, or elect for a superior, stronger grip. Once again, I'm keeping quite tight, concave shoulders forward, chin to heel, heel to chin. And here, again, I can turn at the upper leg, like so. And also, first back heeling. I'm always looking to back heel, take away space. And then also rising the hips inwards and getting that strong counter pressure. One more time. Strong back heel. This time I'll just go foot over foot. Undercross. Having the heel as far forward as possible. No space between my ribs and elbows, or as little as possible. And then looking to stay quite tight. Rotate outwards, inwards. I can use a combination of just rising and bridging as well as clamping and turning, because just by turning I'm taking more slack out of the joint here. And then if I need to, I can also add the bridge. Again, I'm finishing here, but I can go much further than if I need to, so that 10 and 2 principle is in effect. So last time, using this undercross, catching this heel, staying quite far forward, joining my hands together, turning inwards initially, and then bridging through as I turn, trying to stay as concave as forward. This motion with the arm is like trying to read the watch. So I'm like so, turning, and then also bridging through. Those are the braking mechanics for the outside heel hook. So back to outside Ashi braking mechanics. I just realized I left out some cool stuff that I'm going to show you guys again. So outside Ashi. So far when we've been catching the heel, we've been catching the toes in the armpit. Of course, the reason we've been doing that is to get this dorsiflexion happening and getting a good purchase on the heel. And this works really well. It's a strong finish. Something I learned on my recent trip to Austin, and guys have been doing this for a while now. There's even a still image that's pretty popular of Gordon. He's got someone in the EBIs with this variation of the grip. And what's going to happen instead is I'm going to catch the toes in the armpit. Now, as you can see, there's this quite a bit of more of a bend in the foot, and it's become much more of an ankle dominant attack. This can come on quite fast. When I first teach this, it's something like, okay guys, use this undercross to lift the foot, tuck the arm behind the back, like so. I call this the officer I'm innocent. Something it's worth putting some reps into if you're traveling to the States. Officer I'm innocent. And then just rolling this wrist forward like so to catch here. Again, I'm up on my elbow. Everything else is pretty similar, you know. I'm getting this tap here. This is a nice, pretty nasty variation of just the standard heel hook grip. Once you've done this drill a few times and you kind of know where the toes should sit, you can just capture the toes in this sort of elbow pit here. I actually would give my mum a lot of foot massages and then practice exposing the heel, almost like judokas do their setups for throws. And I'm not quite sure if it's helped me, but I do have a good ability to kind of just catch people's heels and know where it is. So maybe there's some utility in also just sitting in what's called static drilling, where I kind of sit in a leg entanglement position, practice my isometric back heels, practice exposing at speed. You can see him bring this forward, really putting a bend in the leg, in the arm. And it's quite easy for me to get a tap here. So one more time, the slow and controlled version where I, officer I'm innocent, roll it forward here, or capturing it with a lot more speed where I just go back, and we're looking at the hierarchy of heel hook grips. So there's a few different ways I can grip his heel here. The standard, the one that we most learning is just the basic gable grip. You know, sometimes you can counterbalance here. A lot of guys are able to get, you know, good rotation and tightness on the heel. I think the length of your forearms will also determine how well this works for you. When I see Lachlan lock this up, because of the length of his forearms, it still looks pretty snug. I almost always have to upgrade at least to a butterfly grip, but I obviously have much longer forearms than a lot of people. Again, the things I want to focus on with all these grips is not bringing this out so he can slip the heel, and like we've reiterated before, bring the elbow forward, reducing the space between my elbow and ribs. Now, these grips I need to also, you know, combine them with my ability to bridge. But there's certain situations where I'm unable to bridge. And situations like, let's say, if he forces me on this hip. So what's happened here is, now that I'm on my left hip, my ability to sort of bridge and cause rotation at the upper limb is almost non-existent. So what can I do to have enough rotation at the lower limb where that doesn't matter anymore? So a great option here is to switch to the reverse grip. So what I'm going to do is lift, rotate my body, and bring this new platform on which I can place the heel. And I don't want to, sometimes I do find myself doing this. I find this comfortable, but by doing this, I kind of let the pressure off a little bit. Whereas by bringing my arm out like so, there's greater pressure and there's more tightness. And this grip is strong enough that I can finish again. I'm finishing here, but there's so much more to go. So 10 and 2 once more. So I fall onto this side, or there's some sort of situation where maybe I'm still here and I just want a more powerful grip, a bit more firepower, and I'm going to rotate my body, swap like so, and just focus on finishing as we were doing earlier, turning, rotating away. I do find myself sometimes doing this, but again, it's easier for him to slip this than it is for him to slip when my elbow is back here. So this is another great option for finishing. I really put that at the top of the hierarchy for grips. And any sort of a situation where I'm unable to cause rotation at the upper limb, unable to use my hips to bridge, clamp, turn, this is something that I have to do in order to generate enough lower limb rotation to be able to finish my opponent. Sometimes our opponent, he becomes savvy to what we're trying to do here, and we're just unable to catch the heel by rotating. One thing I can look at doing is, if I have an inkling that my opponent's going to roll, I can roll before he does and try to catch. And that way, I'm likely to beat him. It's kind of like we're both running a 100-meter sprint, and because I start running first, there's a greater likelihood of me overtaking him. If he starts to roll and I'm not expecting it, there's much more of a likelihood that I will kind of, lose the heel. I obviously then I also had poor connection to the leg. But basically, what I'm doing here is I'm forcing the roll. I'm tucking my head like so, and then elbow striking, catching, and we're in, let's say he continues to stay turtle, we're in this kind of backside, almost heel, backside saddle position almost, where I want to continue to capture the knee like so, and upgrade from just foot on foot to a more stronger grip. I can even look to feed into X legs type situations or double 50 situations here. So one more time, I'm here, and I'm going to look to tuck my head, roll, catch like so. This movement might look a bit tricky and what's going on. All I'm doing is just a basic inversion, but doing it whilst having control of his knee with an undercross, a shotgun in place, tucking this head, catching, making sure I'm exposing mid-roll. So if I do this a bit slower, here, as we roll, the second I feel like I can expose, I start exposing. As a general rule, whilst heel hooking, I expose his heel at the earliest possible opportunity. So then I can begin to start putting the heel hook on as early as possible, and then everything just happens a lot faster and smoother and quicker. One last time. Maybe a bit faster. So continuing on with our rolling to catch the heel, we just looked at using the undercross shotgun combination and rolling. I can do the same thing with 50-50. I can again look to roll like so from 50-50. I can even transition from and to different leg entanglements as I roll. So I can start here inside Senkaku, and then as he rolls, end up in backside 50-50, a different leg entanglement. Next we're going to look at, let's say he's begun to roll before we have, so I'm going to spoke like so. So what the spoke is basically just my outside leg, I'm going to hook like so. Then as he rolls, I curl this leg back like so, and I have this kind of X legs position, and then I'm back into a finish there. One more time. This time he's kind of surprised us with a bit of a roll. I hook, roll through, maybe I swap my legs, go to this double 50. Now we're just using this spoke to kind of slow him down as we transition. One more time. Here, spoke, this inside legs going like so. Alternatively, if I want a very quick transition, I can even feed this top leg through. So from saddle, feed the top leg through, he rolls. Now I'm in just standard backside. The more I am belly down, the less likely he is able to backstep. In fact, if he backsteps now, he'll probably shatter his own leg. So something to be cognizant of. one more time with the faster variation. I'm here, saddle, feeding this across. Another approach to exposing the heel, instead of hitting one of them rolls where we're both, rolling and turning our hips, I can look to turn whilst he doesn't. And now I'm in this kind of heisted entanglement, heisted Ashi. So I'm here and I've kind of swiveled around his leg, and now it's a lot easier for me to expose, turn back, catch his leg. Once more, I'm here, maybe I have an undercross, maybe I just have a climber grip, and I'm posting, extending, turning his leg. And I want a bent leg, I want my hips to be far back, and then it's quite easy for me to catch. I can either continue to roll through, I can try to start applying here, and finish back into a strong braking position. Last time. Completely different technique. This is not exclusive just to the saddle position. I can do a similar thing from outside Ashi, where I'm here, and again I kind of swivel around to catch, or maybe I go on this leg because my right knee is injured. I can even kind of heist knee to foot here and look to expose the heel. So I'm elevating my head height, rotating around the leg. Done in this way, there's far less threat of back exposure. If I just, let's say I got outside Ashi again on this leg. If I just start turning like so, like we spoke about earlier, there's back exposure. But when I'm also changing my level and coming up, there isn't this threat of back exposure, at least as much. Now it's a lot safer for me to take a dig here. So using the heisted position, elevating our level. Another advantage of this is, obviously my opponent, he can't really see what I'm doing here, when I'm up in this way. Maybe he continues to, cross his feet here, and I have to do some variation of uncrossing his feet depending on how he's crossed them. Keep my head in the middle, catching the toes, because a smart opponent will try to protect his legs by crossing them and hiding the heel as much as possible. Again, this is not a big deal. Simply grab this sort of instep in the middle here, separate. Once it's separated, keep them separated. Put wedges, hands, head in the middle, so that you can look to start catching and returning to the finish. So guys, next we're going to look at the 50-50 position. It's been around for a while, made popular by guys like Ryan Hall in the Federation. It was as a gi position. It was more of a stalling position, especially without those kind of strong leg attacks. Now it's far more of a dynamic position, and we saw guys like Giles at ADCC and Craig also with Vinny have success with it, and it does offer my feet to the opponent as well, but it makes it far harder for him to disengage and just completely leave the position, which is easier for someone to do with something like the saddle. Of course, there is that threat of the leg attack, but if you are cognizant of that and take steps to protect your own legs, then this really becomes one of the premier leg lock positions, especially some of its hybrids with X-legs variation. It's something that really needs to be in the toolkit of the modern leg locker. So I'm gonna just kind of go into 50-50 and look at the braking mechanics here, and the major difference now is because my legs are off to the side, when I capture Nick's heel, he can come forward and hand fight quite effectively. Ordinarily, if he were to do this to me in saddle, my legs are a barrier that make it difficult for him to do this. Therefore, I really want to finish by bringing my legs back in play here. So I can have my kind of legs facing the mat here. And even so, if I'm able to bridge up onto my side, now if Nick tries to access my hands, it's a lot harder. This is another thing to be aware of, is when hand fighting becomes more important. Sometimes I see guys, they grip some variation of this. And now if Nick pulls my hand, it's very easy. This is why I always emphasize palm down and grabbing like so. Now if he tries to grab this hand, the top hand, you know, he's not going to pull the top hand off this way. It's just physically not possible. And even if he tries to grab the bottom hand, you know, he can still grab the bottom hand, but it's harder, and I can obviously still finish one-handed. So again, from 50-50, the most effective way to finish is to be up like so. Now, here I am kind of more on my shoulder, which is something we kind of looked at being a bit dangerous, but I'm going to compensate by placing wedges all around him. My torso is over the top, got a nice strong grip, and again I'm attacking the heel hook like so. I can do this to a lesser extent without bridging up and just having my feet in front of him here and bridging in like so. Again, if I notice myself the leg becoming extended, what I can either move my elbow forward or side bridge up and then in. This lateral bridging motion up naturally places a bend in the leg, makes it quite easy to finish. You'll notice there I also use the false grip. The false grip is a great way to control the heel, but I don't think it's as good as finishing as a palm down grip. When we're doing leg entanglements, you'll notice certain leg positions favor finishing and control. So this is a great control position, but for finishing I might look to go foot on foot. Whereas if I just go foot on foot without the heel, Nick can start to pummel in and expose this leg and do all sorts of silly things that I don't want him to be doing. So when I'm just controlling the leg, I might look for different grips, and then as I transition to a finish, I might look for different hand and leg positions to assist me with this. So back to 50-50. Here I might have this control here, bridging up to my side, connecting my hands, looking to finish. My ability to bring this knee down into this space to this 80-20 position is really important. One major mistake guys make with this is they focus on bringing their knee down, whereas I think an easy way to accomplish bringing your knee down is to move your hips away. So if you're having trouble with going to 80-20, that may be one of the things. Of course, sometimes we'll be looking at different variations of this outside Senkaku position that Lachlan made very popular. Here, not much is different. I'm just going to use this strong back heel of bringing my leg back in like so, and then everything else is pretty similar. Turning, bridging in, just back heeling, that's the only difference. Coming here to lock him into place. The maybe only time I'll look at trying to finish whilst I'm in front of him is if I learned this pretty recently. I'm still kind of playing around with it, but it's starting this arm high and then shortening it like so. So I'm here and then I'm running this forearm in a kind of very sharp and abrupt way, and then I can fall flat back, chop this down and get a finish like so. And I think to do this really well, you would have to be a bit, kind of rip it a little. So I would be cautioned against doing this maybe in the training room, but in a more competition setting where the stakes are a bit higher, you can look at starting it high, running it short, and then getting this counter pressure up like so. This is, in my opinion, a very powerful method of causing a lot of damage and rotation to the leg. So 3 finishes we've looked at from 50-50. Coming up, bridging like so. Using the back heel to assist. And then of course, this kind of flat back finish where I'm starting high, running it low, falling back as his hip size up. I'm going to get that counter pressure on the hip. And definitely look at adding 50-50 to your game, doing positional training from the 50-50 positioning, because again, it may seem similar to saddle, but there's some pretty important distinctions that make it important for you to have a bit of a different knowledge and strategy in that position. Backside 50-50 position is something that people are using a lot more lately. It has a lot of benefits. It can be entered straight into. There's often opportunities for it when we're transitioning between leg entanglements. What is it? Basically, when I have 50-50, if Nick turns away and goes to turtle, I have backside 50-50. If he back steps back, this is just standard 50-50. Sometimes we confuse this with back step now. This is a different position. Me just going to saddle and he's back stepped and stay there. This is also a different position. This is more like an outside backside, I guess you could call it, and then like a saddle backside. These are different positions. They're similar, but this is backside 50-50, where both my feet are on the floor, as opposed to me having a triangle on the leg, or my head, knees, and feet being on the outside of his body. So I don't know what you want to call this. I call this outside backside, saddle backside, and then double 50 or just standard backside 50-50. Now from backside 50-50, there's kind of 2 approaches here. I think the better approach is to focus on rotating almost belly down. So with my feet and head and hands, I'm going to look to build up to this belly down position. Now, Nick should definitely not backstep. If Nick goes to slowly backstep, he'll feel the pressure build on the knee. And I can look to start rotating downwards. There are some guys who will kind of look to stay tight and lengthen like so. This can work at certain levels. I feel like it's not quite as good as to stretch out as just turning belly down. Again, extending with the top leg away, pinching with the bottom leg down. So it's not always a good idea to cross my feet. Sometimes it's better to wedge and turn away. If his knee starts to escape, I need to address that immediately. Capturing this knee, kicking back through, and then looking to finish like so. So pay attention to having this knee wedged firmly, wedges in all angles, joining my hands together, going belly down. That's how to finish in the backside 50-50 position. So we're just going to review the backside 50-50 finish, but with a different camera angle. So Nick's going to back step. Once again, I'm going to catch the heel, and I'm going to look to start rotating belly down with my whole body and bridging in for the finish. I can look to extend and pinch as I do this. So focus less on crossing the ankles and trying to pinch. Instead, extend the top leg, retract the bottom leg to yourself, and then keeping everything tight. None of this extension away. Heel, chin tight, everything tight. Look at rotating away and getting the finish. Not much changes if I've got this kind of double 50 happening. Just being cognizant of the knee, not allowing the knee to free itself. If that happens, cup it, extend the bottom leg, recapture, and now we're back in business. So we've kind of covered a lot of the main knowledge surrounding finishing the inside and outside heel hook. We've looked at the core four, different techniques to kind of execute the core four. Now we're going to kind of look at some other attacks that are kind of like, accessory attacks to our main attack, which is the heel hook. We're going to look at toe holds, maybe the straight ankle, the corkscrew or the reverse toe hold attack. When I'm in, let's say, something like 50-50, a strong attack I can execute is this kind of corkscrew submission. So what I want to do is place this hand palm facing towards me, pretty high on the feet. This other one is running across his arm like so. And then I'm going to kind of keep everything tight to my body and rotate my torso. This is a pretty strong and it's not a submission many people do. It's pretty unsuspecting. So I'm here, making sure I'm staying quite high here, pinching everything tight to my body. Yeah, I'm using my arms, but I'm also rotating my body, and it's quite a strong submission. So people call this the reverse toe hold or the corkscrew. Some guys even do like a one arm variation. I think it's far less high percentage, but the idea is the same. We're trying to turn the toes in like so. Another attack we can look at is just the basic toe hold. Oftentimes when Nick's feet are crossed and I'm looking to heel hook, a good way for him to forget about this heel hook attack is to start attacking this top leg. So if I start to toe hold on this top leg, then Nick is likely to react to that, and obviously I get this attack on this main leg. When I am looking to toe hold, what I want to do is bend Nick's leg back towards his butt. And when there is this really acute bend in his leg, it'll be quite easy to really damage his foot and knee. So what I want to do is actually grab the toes. Grab as high at the end of the lever as you can, as high as you can. Come through, grip it like so. Bend this back as far back as possible, and then look to raise. Also, don't just focus on extending the lower leg, the toes away. Also focus on lifting my elbow back and up like so. So here, and it's pretty easy. You gotta tap here, and again I can do the 10 and 2 principle. Another variation of this, instead of grabbing the end of the lever at the toes, I can grab the heel. And now I have an even stronger attack. Again, it's the same mechanics as a toe hold, but I'm grabbing here and my elbow and forearm is bending the leg, and this is an even stronger and faster attack than the one we were doing earlier. So here, or cupping behind the heel, bending like so, and again I'm doing the same thing. It's generally a bad idea for Nick to just stand up and start to attack toe holds here where he has no control of me, because I can just easily rotate out and not much has happened. So again, if I'm facing here for you guys, Nick attacks the toe hold and I'm just gonna spin out. In fact, let's say if Nick attacks this outside leg, it's a pretty bad idea for him to do this, because it usually gives me a K-guard entry into the backside position on the far leg. That's usually my go-to. If I have a guy who wants to attack a toe hold on me, the first thing I'll do is just invert. I'm no longer in the toe hold, and then re-attack a much stronger heel hook of my own. So once again, I'm here, I'm playing guard. Nick decides to attack this toe hold. I'm going to extend, rotate. Now the toe hold is no longer a threat. I'm cupping the Achilles, back of the knee, feeding this back into the backside position that we've been looking at last time. Also, if Nick decides that, let's say he's playing seated now, and just going to mimic what I'm doing, mirror my position, and I look to start going for a bear and bowl. Let's say he starts to attack this toe hold. He'll always get his back taken. Maybe Nick's really strong and I'm a lot weaker and he gets it, but majority of the time, if I go to bowler and Nick grabs this, there's just too much movement happening for him to successfully be able to toe hold me. So, reserve the toe hold for when you have a strong leg entanglement, 50-50 Sit Ashi, maybe attack the secondary leg. Don't look to just from guard or from the bowler where you have no control of the person's body and they can go into far stronger attacks on you. That is not a good time to go for the toe hold. I'm going to show you now a good entry level drill. I call it the saddle swap drill. The saddle swap is basically Nick's got me in saddle, let's say. What I'm going to do, let's say he's got the heel, I'm going to practice turning away, in, slipping the heel, thumb posting, extracting my knee line, pummeling, gripping, like so, kicking, and as I come back, I catch his heel. He's gonna now slip, thumb post, re-attack. As he enters, he catches my heel. Excellent. And now I'm gonna do the same thing. Slip my heel, thumb post, come through. As soon as the leg comes up, I'm waiting to catch. Again, Nick's gonna slip, bring it back out. Nice. So we have this strong circular drill where I'm practicing A, heel slippage. So I'm here, he's going to slip the heel. B, thumb posting, knee line control. C, he's going to look at re-attracting and then exposing upon entry. So this is what we're looking to do here. We're looking to A, get the skill of heel slipping, B, freeing the knee line, C, re-attacking, D, exposing on entry. I'm very glad I got my alphabet in order there because halfway through I was a bit worried. But English is my second language. Look how far I've come. Anyway, that is the saddle swap drill. It's an excellent drill. You work on defense, offense, particularly done in that way, making sure to again expose the heel at the earliest possible opportunity. I'm going to show you guys a few entries to get into these high percentage leg attacking positions. At first I was kind of debating because I wanted to really focus on breaking mechanics, but obviously you do also need to get there. I do think you want to have confidence in your breaking mechanics first and try to develop those skills. So doing a lot of positional training from this position already, so you already know how to finish from once you're there. Just going to start by some entries from the bottom. Obviously when I'm entering legs from top position, I'm giving up something that's very advantageous, whereas when I'm already on the bottom, there's not all that much I'm going to risk. So let's just look at half butterfly. It's very easy to get to half butterfly. Most people have been in the situation, maybe he's crushing me chest to chest, and it's looking real bad for me. Okay, what can I do to kind of improve my situation? Well, obviously, as always, if I can try to get some frames in place, that's going to sort of, it's on the road to recovery. What I'm going to do is take my outside leg, insert it like so. Now if Nick continues to recklessly pressure into me, I can easily lift and extend him like so. So there's a great amount of kazushi, like off balancing, I can generate with the use of my butterfly and this kind of, I'm not exactly sure what this is called, but this kind of cross elbow frame, which really makes it hard for him to pin me and control me. So this, used in conjunction with throwing him and also elevating him in multiple directions, I start to look to off balance him. Now what I'm going to do is just frame, and now I'm in single leg X. From single leg X, very easy for me to start rolling into what should now be a familiar position, Sit Ashi. So once again, Nick's crushing me here. I'm going to get my frames inside, insert my butterfly hook, swap from this type of frame to under the armpit, extend him away, bring this knee through like so. Then I'm just going to bring this over, expose. This should look very familiar. I'm kind of being lazy. What you do want to do is connect your hands together and head roll. So what I mean by that is, once I've got this single leg X on the knees position, I don't want to I want to expose as early as possible. I don't want to roll one-handed. I'd like to join my hands together and roll with my hands the entire time, gripping the heel, instead of kind of undoing my grip and then looking to capture it one more time. Once again, here getting crushed, I extend him away, look to make entry on this leg. I'm in half butterfly here. He's going to come forward, elevating, capturing, dumping him on his back. Now I've got all my options like before. Standard butterfly guard. Maybe I'm posting and snapping. Craig does this really well. I've actually taken it from his instructional. Is come forward. This is something he was teaching. Coming forward here into this high-sit position, and then just hitting a very smooth victor's roll. One more time. I'm here. I don't want to be all about pulling here, so I want to pull, but also push, pull, heist, roll through. Rolling with an underhook, so I might look to come over before I catch, or again grab the secondary leg to get a bit of control in the situation. Once more. Again, pushing, checking the shoulder, pulling the head, taking a far lat grip as I heist, like so. You can see my knees kind of up here. I like to capture the leg, get an underhook, so I've got a control in as I land. If sometimes you can't get it, maybe there's no space to come in, that's okay. If you want to sort of learn that technique more in depth and some follow-ups, I recommend Craig's instructionals. They're obviously excellent, a lot better than mine. You should buy those as well.
I'll download them.
Oh, well, don't do that. Don't download anybody's instructionals. So we looked at some entries from half butterfly, we've looked at. Of course, there's also, just traditional elevations. It's all different variations where I load Nick up like so. And again, try to enter the legs in different ways. I hesitate from doing that stuff sometimes. I find elevating people, I've got knee injuries and I'm a bit worried about loading weight onto my ankles, so I won't be showing too many of those. So those are some entries from bottom. Next we're going to look at some entries from top position. Yeah, so next we're going to look at some entries from when I'm in top position. So next on his back, just playing open guard, he's in supine position. I'm going to start to create some strong pressure with side to side outside passing. So maybe a Toriander one way or the other way. And what he's going to do is try to keep this knee and elbow connection. If he doesn't, I'm going to obviously step to his hip and look to pass. So the correct response is for him to create this knee and elbow connection. What I'm going to do is pull and push, sitting in like so, pinching my knees, turning, catching, joining my hands together. I'm going to start applying as I'm sitting back. I'm not going to do this for the purposes of Nick's safety, but in competition I would start applying here and then look to enter some form of an Ashi and apply. And this is a very sudden and explosive and very dangerous way to enter into a leg attack, especially when done in a detailed manner as possible. So maybe a knee cut one way, Toriander one way. Here I'm going to push, pull, pinch, rotate my body, catch, sit, rip, start to really pull, get pressure in. Doesn't matter which entanglement I fall into. I can fall into 50-50 or even, some variation of like a saddle that we looked at. And it's very quick and sudden. So one last time, I'm here, I'm knee cutting. Maybe I'm in this kind of a position here, looking for a scoop or something. And what I'm going to look to do is cut this knee through here and pivot like so. Here I can find myself in either a knee bar situation or in saddle, once again looking for more traditional break. Once more, I'm here, I'm cupping like so, and I'm diving this knee through. And I can either fall into a knee bar situation, crossing my feet, extending like so, or what we've been looking at in this series, this inside heel hook. Last time. Here. Let's say I'm in some version of like a knee cut here. Maybe I have this underhook, maybe I don't. Maybe he's going to underhook on me. I'm going to just take this my laces on my left foot and pummel them over. So I've taken this and I'm going to come here. So I was here. Just wait for that truck to pass. And I'm going to pummel this in like so. And now I've got this high Sit Ashi. So here I can look to separate the feet, expose, and we're back in as strong. And here I've got these laces on the outside, which is another variation of the saddle. What happens with the laces is it just naturally makes it harder for him to rotate his knee outwards. So anytime I can bring my inside foot and insert this laces on his glute, it'll make everything far tighter. The amazing thing about this is even if I lose the knee line, this is so strong that I can still get pressure with the heel hook. So even though we talked a lot about the knee line and how important it is, there are exceptions, namely with the laces, where even without having the knee line, I can generate enough pressure with this inside and outside that I can continue to break his leg. Once more, I'm here, and I just look to the back step. When this was first shown to me, it looked something like this. It was like here, and then back step, and if you can do this to the guy who works at 7-Eleven, I'll give you a medal. Like, that's insane to me. That, you know, this is how we learnt it. Like, oh, it's such a obtuse and over-the-top movement. It should never work against anyone. So, if it has worked against you, you should do some serious reflection. But a more subtle pummel, like just here, that is a legitimate technique. But if you're doing these very obtuse, crazy, gross movements, and you're tapping people, I'm amazed. You should tell those people to try to get matches against me, because I'd like to fight people who are not very good. Continuing on the theme of leg entries, now the roles are reversed. I'm playing seated guard. Nick is going to look to pass, and I've got some entries from this position. For quite some time, people were practicing, kind of went viral, this kind of Imanari roll, and it's, you know, made a few people go viral, but the problem here is, let's say if Nick does this technique to me, he looks to invert here. When he's inverted like so, it's very easy for me to just sit and enter into a back take situation. So, it's not to say that we're not going to ever do, you know, these types of entries which leave us vulnerable to that style of attack, because many, if not most, leg entries of this kind do. But there's safer options that we're going to be mindful of when going against an opponent who has this type of a strong attack. One slight variation I can add is from here, I roll, but like so. So I end up in backside 50-50 and not inside. So what am I doing? I'm here, I'm throwing my legs away, and I'm ending up like so. I call this like the dead man's position. This is a terrible place to be in a fight. And then just bring my leg outside and in. It's a bit of a safer attack. Lands me in a better position. Also, an even safer entry is like the false reap. With the false reap, let's say he steps to my hip, I can just throw this over like so. Look to invert, catch the heel. Once more. I'm here, he steps to my hip. Oh. Once more. Some people, they have trouble here clearing this leg. So what will happen is sometimes people, you enter like this and they have trouble clearing this leg, and this seems to make it difficult for them. If I continue to invert, it'll be a lot easier to clear the leg. So having a good inversion is important. Alternatively, if you're, I mean, this is not a false reap instructional, but this is an entry that's popular and one I like. If he starts to frame my knee and foot, I can find myself in a lot of trouble. So what I'm going to do here is go back to a strong grip, focus on pulling and extending. And now that I've cleared the leg, I can shoot into these types of 50-50 positions and look to expose. So rolling into the 50-50, looking at the false reap entry. Now you've also got some options for a standing versus seated versus a standing opponent. So now we're going to look at some entries from the standing position. Obviously, when I'm standing, the more normal thing to do is kind of wrestle for takedowns or pull guard. When you kind of do these flying entries into leg entanglements, you surprise a lot of people, and you can even catch far more experienced wrestlers. I'm not saying that Nick is a far more experienced wrestler. I'm just saying they're also out there.
Just a little bit more.
So if Nick takes a single leg on me, this is often a really good opportunity for me to enter into different entanglements. So what I'm going to look to do here is just hop, hop, dive into a leg lock. So what happened there? One more time. So I need to have some space in between his legs. So maybe I do some traditional defenses. You know, I get a wizard, look for head positioning, all that stuff. And then I'm just going to look to hop through here, catch. And we've seen how this movie plays out. Another thing I can do from standing position is, again, that Victor's roll we looked at earlier, where he's taking a single. I can just look to hit a Victor's roll like we did from seated guard, or even look for more traditional scissor leg. Kani Basami. That's usually banned in most training rooms and competitions, so practice that if you think you're good enough to do that. Actually, that's probably a bad measure to determine if you're good at something. I don't know, maybe consult an expert before you practice that. One more time. From here, hop, hop, and I'm just going to catch the back here and look to expose. Again, because I'm on this hip, I'll probably look to get to a reverse figure 4. That's good. So at this point we've been here for a while and we would rather be doing other things, so we're going to kind of rush through the last part of this, you know, because honestly, once you've already paid for it, I don't really care how good you think this is. I'm kidding. We're going to now look at some counters to a lot of these common leg locking positions. Now, if I'm doing something like the running man escape, if I escape in such a way that yes, I'm completely out of danger, but I've also no avenue or opportunity for regaining the offense, re-attacking. So that's why we looked at the saddle escape drill, or the saddle swap drill, where yes, I exit, but I'm immediately on the re-attack. So just some techniques I'll share with you just from single leg X. So I'm in single leg X. My opponent is looking to apply a Achilles lock. I can look to open up here, capture his heel. I can even look to just turn this heel like so. But a better option is to really place this heel here. And now I've got this very strong attack from my opponent's attack. So now that we understand braking mechanics, transitions, following up the heel, entries, where the most advanced leg locking happens is finding the entry and finish off of my opponent's attack. Because one of the best entries for leg locks is capitalizing on the entry my opponent's already made. I'm going to open up this space. Now I've got a very powerful leg attack that my opponent basically gave me. He did all the hard work of getting here. And now I've just very simply taken, and he's stuck with a little measly Achilles lock, and I've got a figure four and an outside heel hook. I'm going to have a pretty good day. Last time. Here, opening up, pulling this through, reaping. Again, from saddle, there's similar options. Let's say I'm in saddle. I can look to just pummel in like so. Grip behind the knee and ankle. Start to look to expose an outside heel hook or heel hook here. I do have to be wary of Nick here, freeing his knee, scooting his butt around, and now I don't have his heel, and he's got once again a great attack on mine. So again, this game of capitalizing on my opponent's, I was about to say my parents' offense, my opponent's offense goes both ways. So even though here it started out as my attack, he can look to counter the counter. So just being aware of all these little tricks, so to speak. Again, if I'm in saddle, I can even just look to take a toe hold here. And again, if he's exposed my heel, I would not be doing this. You know, I would be looking to, I'd be honestly even be looking to tap depending on how far he's gotten with heel exposure. So I need to make sure that he doesn't have that, and I'm just kind of threatening. This might only be to free my leg and do something else, but it's just to cause a reaction from him. So again, I open up and look to start going for a toe hold, which he does have to respect. If he, you know, a lot of these submissions, even wrist locks, if you don't respect them and you allow them to build, you can find yourself tapping into something you would otherwise consider pretty silly. So here, I'm in saddle, opening up, access to his feet, looking for heel hooks or toe holds. Going back to, with outside Ashi, we also have quite strong attacks where if he's kind of too focused on the heel or whatever, I can just slide this leg over. And now I can either heist and catch, or even just expose him from here. And I've gone from being in a leg entanglement to now being offensive with the most powerful joint lock we have in Jiu-Jitsu. I'm sort of presenting these to you to get this concept in mind of, hey, yes, defend, but the best defense is a good offense. The last little technique I've got here is just, if you've got a straight ankle lock again, I can look to start attacking an Aoki style attack of my own here, where I'm causing this strong rotation. So you'll notice when we're in these leg positions, there's often access to my opponent's legs if I'm able to pummel and grip fight. Granted, I need to have good enough defense with pointing my toes, hiding my heel, to be able to be comfortable enough in those leg entanglement positions. Because otherwise, if I let off my defense for even a moment and it goes too far, then I'm obviously in trouble. So thanks heaps for watching this, guys, and buying this. Really thankful to Nick and the guys here at Garage Jiu-Jitsu Tagra, for Maurice, Journey Films, for helping me with all the video stuff. These guys have gone out of this way and not, charging me any money for all their time and skills, so wouldn't be possible to do this without them. Really thankful to all my coaches, in Australia, overseas, who've kind of shown me all this stuff, and everyone I've trained with. If you have any questions at all about any concepts or techniques in this, please feel free to reach out to me. I've got an Instagram, Bobby Sandhu, SANDHUBJ, Facebook page, but Instagram would probably be the best way to get a hold of me. I'm more than happy to go through anything or answer your questions. So really appreciate you guys' support, and thanks again.